Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I am your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Amy Pechacek. Amy Pechacek is the founder and CEO of Alpstra Training Solutions, a corporate training company dedicated to developing resilient, emotionally intelligent, and purpose-driven leaders. Amy is an international speaker and leadership expert who works with corporate executives, emerging leaders, and blue-collar professionals to help them break through fear, embrace change, and lead with confidence. Through Alpstra Training Solutions, Amy provides corporate training programs, executive coaching, and keynote speaking to organizations across industries. Her approach blends faith-based values with practical leadership strategies, equipping leaders with tools to foster engagement, navigate challenges, and drive high performance. Her work focuses on self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and personal transformation, because when leaders grow, their teams and organizations thrive. You can find Amy on LinkedIn by searching Amy Pechacek or by going to her website, alpstra.com. Hello, Amy. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Hi, Olivia. Thanks for having me.
To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Amy Pechacek?
Absolutely. Oftentimes I say that success is one of those words that's deeply personal. It means something different to every person. And basically, what you define as success today could be very different from what you thought it was 5 years, 10 years ago, and especially early on in your career. So, today, what success means to me, it's about impact. It's about not just hitting milestones, gaining recognition or even achieving, say, financial success along the way, but it's truly about those lives that you're able to touch. So when I measure my own success, I think about the leaders that I work with, if I'm able to help transform them, the teams that I help empower, and truly the individual people, the one-on-one individuals that I work with who are more confident and capable because of the work that we do together. So to me today, true success is more about personal achievement, right? And it's about creating a ripple effect that's going to affect others along the way. So you touch one life, and that one life ripples out to all the people in their networks, and it has this massive transformational process.
And I love how you emphasize the ripple effect there, because so many times we think about making the impact and it's the immediate circle we have,
Right.
right? So the people in front of us or who we're touching today, how did that impact them? But a lot of times the impact might not be felt or recognized today, tomorrow. It could be next week, it could be next month. But the way you help that person, they end up helping others. So it's really that ripple effect that you emphasize. Amy, many leadership discussions focus around overcoming fear and building resilience, but something that's rarely talked about is how leaders can strategically leverage their personal setbacks as a competitive advantage. Usually we look at setbacks as that thing of, oh, okay, why did this happen? How do I need to do this better? But we forget about how we can leverage that to push ourselves forward and change our perspective. Based on your experience, how can professionals transform their most challenging life experiences, not just into personal growth, but into tangible leadership strengths that set them apart in their career and in industries?
Yeah, so professionally and personally, I believe it's the same. And the people who are the most successful or the best leaders, they don't just survive adversity or just survive when bad things happen. They actually leverage it to their benefit. What we know is some of those toughest things that we go through, some of the toughest moments we have, they can actually shape us to be even better versions of ourselves if we allow them to. So, personally, I faced some challenges that forced me to grow in ways that I never expected to even face in life, right? Never expected that would happen. But instead of seeing those things as setbacks, I truly reframed them in a way that now they've become strengths for me. And they're enabling me to be able to connect with people who've gone through similar things or who go through hard things in life, right? So personal adversity truly builds resilience. And, it's kind of cliche, but you hear it often that the strongest people have gone through the strongest storms. But I believe that's absolutely true because that adversity that we face, it helps build emotional intelligence. It helps build resilience. It helps us become adaptable. And these are all lessons that help us connect and grow with other people. And then therefore we can guide them and inspire them as they're going through their own things. So, you look at professional success and how it relates to that personal challenges or personal adversities. Well, what I like to say is the great leaders, they don't hide their scars, right? They use their scars as proof that growth is possible and it's a source of strength for them and their teams. They show up as the true authentic versions of themselves.
I think it's so important, and just like you were talking about, to show those scars, because not only does it make a leader more relatable, right? If you're, I'll use this example, a top CEO, and you're in this massive company, we'll use a Fortune 500 company like Disney, right? If you're that some of those top people and that entry level person's coming in, is like, how will they understand me? How can I have some of these hard conversations, especially when trying to have a voice at a table? And a lot of times, the second you start saying, I need help with this, or this is what I went through, it becomes, oh, wait, that person isn't just this picture perfect thing I'm either picturing as, or I'm seeing them as they have these holes and I've gone through these, or I'm going through this, and it's one of those things too that when you lead, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, with vulnerability. When you lead with that, it breaks down a lot of the barriers from the beginning.
Right. Yeah. So vulnerability is actually one of those things that helps us connect with other people. Connection is emotional. And if we treat everybody around us as just a robot, even like when you're dealing with people who work in the service industry or when you're dealing with customer service representatives, as a salesperson, I mean, any role that you can think of, you're connecting to a human being. There's actually a person on the other side of that screen who has real emotions, who has real goals, who has real fears. And if we try to put on this mask where we hide ourselves from everyone that we interact with, we're never going to connect with people. Well, when you show up authentically and you show that human side of you, that side that's a little vulnerable, and I'm not meaning share every single thing that's ever happened in your life, but showing up authentically, right? Warts and all, then you can help create that connection with other human beings that you're interacting with, right? And so it gives them the freedom to be themselves as well.
And one thing I recently went through is like relocating to Alaska was a dramatic, drastic change for me. It was nothing. I always joke it wasn't a place I ever really considered visiting, just because I'm not typically a cold person, than liking cold weather, and now I'm living here for 2 years. And I say that took a lot for me to do and relocate with my boyfriend who serves right now. And when people ask me about it, and as I was transitioning and starting in Alaska, I was like, to be completely honest, there's days I'm good and there's days that I'm like, what am I doing?
Right.
And I think being that vulnerable, in meetings, it like kind of let the guard down for everyone of like, okay, she's not having the best day, or we're bringing this up because it's so interesting, but in reality, like, she's going through things. And I think saying that instead of just always putting the answer of, yeah, we're good, like, it's
Yeah.
great here, it's fantastic, allowed me to go through that process, but also knew that I wasn't hiding anything or had to hide those other things to show up in the work environment.
Right. Yeah. And by doing that, then that gives other people the confidence to be able to do the same. A lot of times in some of the workshops I do, I will have people partner up and I will ask them to share a low stakes event that happened in their childhood that helped shape them to who they are today. And it's like, okay, well, that's an exercise that some people might consider an icebreaker, but truly what it does is it's one of those things you're not going to share it if you're not comfortable, right? But something that's low stakes, something good or bad that happened when you were younger that shaped who you are today. And that just kind of helps open that shell a little bit to see that we're all real. We all have experiences and there are all things in our lives that have helped us become who we are today. And by doing that one little activity, Olivia, you would be amazed at how much people open up from that point forward.
It also, I would assume, and I'd love to hear more about this from you. I would assume that it also allows people to be heard and seen and actually be like, okay, this is what has shaped me. And being vulnerable like that and starting off at that point, like you said, not a deep, uh,
Sure.
thing they have to share, but it allows them to be heard, be seen, and probably also gives the other person a ability to then see them in a different light.
And it does exactly that, right? And we know that's so important. People, everybody wants to be seen, wants to be heard, wants to be recognized. Some personalities are more willing to be vulnerable, right? But there are some people out there who it scares them to death, right? They get wrapped up in their fears. If anybody sees inside of me, oh my goodness, what are they going to think? And they may shut down. But by asking them to do something that's very low stakes, and they see, hey, that didn't hurt. That didn't kill me, right? I'm still here. This person's still talking to me. I'm still engaged. And as you said, now I'm being heard and seen. It encourages them to take the next little step forward towards that authenticity.
Amy, one thing you just brought up there as well is that not everyone is as comfortable to share. And when you're working with individuals and in groups, how do you kind of scope out who might be more comfortable, who might not, and get those individuals who are not starting out comfortable sharing and having, who are maybe in real time even having some of those fears that you just discussed, kind of break that down?
Well, so I try to read the room, okay? And there's always going to be people who speak out more than others. And so the same people generally speak up over and over and over again, right? So when I read the room and I see someone hiding in my shell, that used to be me. I used to be the person who would sit there and not say a word. Then I just kind of gently nudge them. I will call their name. Hey, Olivia, what are your thoughts on this? And I do it in a way that it's not hopefully scary for them, right? It's not something where they have to know the answer to whatever we're talking about. It's more of a, what are your thoughts on this topic? So they can, sometimes they'll just say a sentence or two, and that's okay. And maybe I'll ask them a question about the sentence. But it's amazing that a lot of times when you just ask a question that's nudging them to open up a little bit, how you'll see them shift. And so sometimes I do these 3-day events. And on the first day, there are a lot of people who aren't talking much at all. And some of it's that fear, right? Fear of judgments and things like that. But what's crazy is by the third day, everyone in this workshop is now connecting, they're networking, they've gotten to know each other, they're more comfortable opening up, and it's just doing it with them gradually, step by step, not taking them from being inside the shell to expecting them to open up completely, but doing it gradually and letting them do it on their terms. That seems to work for me.
Amy, one thing we've talked a lot about in bringing up leaders and leadership in general so far in this conversation is really emotional intelligence aspects as well, which I think is so important. One of my favorite things. I'm like, you have to build those emotional intelligence skills for your toolbox. And I
Right.
feel like when we talk about leadership and development and all these things, a lot of times whether it's consultants or leaders themselves or companies, the thing they forget about is that emotional intelligence can really be that pivotal tool that a leader or someone growing to become a leader really needs, especially in today's day and age where technology, emails, phone, text messaging, it's all there. And I feel like the younger individuals are where they're so used to always being on the phone, not having to have face-to-face conversations. It's becoming harder for those skills to organically grow. Why is emotional intelligence one of the key things you focus on within your company?
Because emotional intelligence is a game changer. It truly is. It's a game changer, and not just the effectiveness of an organization, but you can look down further at a team, and then even as an individual success. I mean, heck, Olivia, if you open up any social media app, like, oh, let's just say Facebook, right? Because it was one of the first big ones, and you go to a news station article, it doesn't matter what the news is talking about. It could be the daggum weather, right? But you're going to see people arguing their point back and forth, and it's like everywhere you turn today, the world is just on fire. They're emotionally charged. So it's no wonder that those people who understand how to empathize with other, how to manage their own emotions, right? And who have a high level of emotional intelligence are more successful than others. They have better relationships, they're higher performers, right? So they're able to go further in their careers, and they have better personal lives. And it's because they've learned how to manage their own emotions and only um, get passionate about things that really matter, not just any little thing that comes their way, but just the things that truly matter. But they're also able to look at another person and understand that that person has different life experiences than I have, right? So I haven't walked in their shoes. They haven't walked in mine. And I don't have to be right all the time. And it's so important. Those people who have high levels of emotional intelligence and adaptability, they're willing to listen to the insights, the experiences and insights of other people, right? So it just is, it's just a game changer.
How have you leveraged emotional intelligence in your everyday life? And potentially, I'll open the door up to say whether it's moments of going from things going on personally to being in a room and consulting or giving a talk. Like, how do you always leverage that yourself?
Well, so I was not the most emotionally intelligent person for a big part of my life. And sorry, my little kitty cat came to say hi here real quick. But once I learned about, I was, before I learned about emotional intelligence, I was one of those highly charged, passionate people. I'm still very passionate, right? I just know where or how to leverage that passion and things that will take me forward, things that are productive and not things that are destructive. So when you're highly charged and highly passionate, not everybody is. Some people are more, even keel. But when you have somebody like me who is a very passionate person, if you don't rein that in, right, and use it effectively, then it can destroy a lot of things. It can destroy your relationships. It can destroy your career. So I wasn't at that extent of it, right? But learning about emotional intelligence, then it helps you, that ripple effect. Let's go back to it. So when you learn how to handle things appropriately, and you start having conversations with other people who might be doing things that you've done in the past, or might be doing things to hurt themselves without even realizing it, and you can have a one-on-one conversation with them and help them see, the impact of their emotions, then it again helps make everybody better.
I remember I recently had a conversation, and when I really learned about emotional intelligence myself, I was in college and there was a professor there that actually like helped formulate emotional intelligence, and he has since passed away, but he like built back in these days these training facilities on emotional intelligence and these outdoor exercises they used to do. And I got to know him well, and it wasn't in my curriculum, but it was in the school of business. He taught some classes on emotional intelligence. And I would sit with him in his office and just learn and talk to him and his experiences and his approach on emotional intelligence. And one day he said to me, Olivia, spring semester's coming up. I'm going to be teaching these two classes. If you want to sit in on the classes, you're more than welcome to. And I was like, yes, count me in. And that's where like I started working with him in free time, whether it was just sitting in the classes or being in his office, like helping him plan like exercises or this or that, really gave me the eye opening of like, we can sometimes say we know emotional intelligence, but until you really dive into it, there's all these aspects, like you said, of being able to control sometimes your emotions or how you say something, being able to understand that the person across from you talking to you, whether their voice gets raised or not, or they start to shut down, might not have to do with the conversation. It might have to do with some of those experiences. And I even remembered recently, like having that foundation to really understand emotional intelligence. I've always kind of, even when I get hot about a topic, I'm like, no. I try to take a step back sometimes, but recently I had a conversation with someone, and I could tell off the bat they did not understand emotional intelligence. And they were having this argument, and they were like, well, you really don't have emotional intelligence. I have emotional intelligence. And I was like, I didn't say anything. I was just like, why do you think you have emotional intelligence right now? Or in general, because everything you've done up to this point on that topic had no emotional intelligence in it at all. So for you, how do you sometimes handle someone who thinks they have tools in their toolbox and expertise in emotional intelligence, or has some of those tools, but in reality doesn't have what they think they have? And how do you kind of softly get into those conversations of like, this is something you need to be leveraging more and practicing more and doing?
Well, if they haven't asked me to coach them already, then I'll ask them if they are open to feedback. So that's the first thing. I'm not going to give somebody any advice or input or feedback unless I have permission to do so. By gaining their permission, then they themselves have opened themselves up to hear whatever it is that you're saying to them. And if they say no, then okay, right? So you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, and it's the same way. I also pick my own battles. Is it worth the energy that it takes to have this conversation? Because at the end of the day, not everybody is open to hearing feedback. But if they are, then we have the conversations that are right for where they are and for what I see in them. I believe that feedback is a gift, and it's one of the purest forms of love that you can give someone. So when we're talking about emotional intelligence with somebody who doesn't have it, you do it in a way that helps them see maybe the end result of what's going to happen if they continue going down the path they're on. So help them see a worst case, let's say, scenario of what their life could look like, and how their actions are leading them there. But then also painting the picture by asking the right questions. What is it that you truly want? And helping them paint the picture of what they do want out of life. And I've worked with hundreds, probably thousands of people, right? And at the end of the day, every single person that I've ever worked with on a deep level, they all want to have a happy, healthy life. They will all want to leave a legacy for their family, and they all use this word help. So every single person I've ever worked with in some way or another has said that at the end of the day, they want to help people. They either want to help their community, they want to help their families, they want to help their teams, but it's all about helping people. And the best way you can help people, right,
Mhm.
is to have your own life cleaned up so that you can lead them effectively. And that's where it starts.
I love how you brought up feedback is a gift. And that is something that someone has to be open to receiving.
True.
And I think like hearing you say that and thinking about feedback in the way or when people take it and really implement it versus don't is really how you form that conversation around providing the feedback. So I loved how you said like asking someone if they're open to that to start the conversation, because I really do believe when you said that can be a game changer in how the rest of the conversation goes. And sometimes, like you said, if it's a no, just don't go there. It potentially is not worth the time.
So let me add something. Have you ever seen the Christmas Story with little Ralphie and the pink bunny suit? I use
Yeah.
that analogy all the time. Feedback is like a pink bunny suit. Okay, we're not talking about criticism that's meant to be harmful, but constructive criticism or feedback. See it as a pink bunny suit. Try it on. Does it fit? Keep it. If it doesn't, as his dad said, take it off. Right. So yeah.
Hmm. So, Amy, sometimes there's uncertainty that like happens in all of us, right? Whether it's an organization, individually, within a team. If uncertainty can be a strength, going back to what we were talking about earlier, how can leaders create a culture where their teams also feel empowered to navigate the unknown without leading to hesitation or a lack of direction? Because sometimes when there's no direction, or there's the ability to make choices yourself or uncertainty on what path you have to take, it indirectly you don't want to make decisions. So how do you help that?
Well, so when we talk about uncertainty, that's often wrapped up in some kind of fear. Okay. So let's start there. The first part is fear. But I actually see it as an opportunity because the best leaders know they don't have to have the perfect answer all the time, right? They're willing to adapt, they're willing to ask questions, they're willing to stay open to the ideas and opinions of other people. So when you look at it that way, it's not really like a liability. It can truly become a competitive edge. It's a switch in the mindset. But when you're talking about teams, it's about allowing some kind of psychological safety for your team. Okay. Going back to that vulnerability and that authenticity. Teams need to know that it's okay to take risks. And I often say that, allow your team members to take calculated risks, not talking about $1 million risks, but take calculated risks. It's okay to make mistakes. I remind leaders that when they became the expert in their field, they made many mistakes. And I remind them by asking them if they did, right? So when you started learning about this topic, did you make mistakes? They always say yes, right? So remember that you made mistakes in the beginning, and it's okay to let them make mistakes as well. So allow them to take calculated risks, allow them to make those mistakes, and then also allow them to explore some possibilities, some new ideas, some new ways of doing things without fear that they're going to get in trouble, without fear of punishment. Okay. So leaders truly set the tone and they model transparency. They don't have to know all the answers. But if they show that to their team members and they show them that learning is a part of the process, that there's an environment of curiosity and adaptability, then, a lot of that fear will get squashed. Okay. And
Mhm.
it empowers them to move forward with confidence, even when they don't know the clear path, even when the path isn't defined out in front of them specifically.
And I think that also is so true for small businesses and entrepreneurs coming up, because a lot of times in the entrepreneurship space and when you're just starting out, there's a lot of uncertainty, and you might bring people on and you might not always have a direction, you might need to pivot. But like you said, leading with that transparency, the vulnerability that we also talked about earlier, the emotional intelligence, all these different aspects will really help you leverage, but also understanding that no 2 days are the same, and inevitably over time you're going to have to pivot. Even the massive companies have pivoted on some of their ideas, or not just one offering, quite a few offerings. You even see this with y- Disney. When they came out with their streaming service, they understood that was a space they needed to go into, so they, instead of just releasing movies to the movie theater and having you buy DVDs, because people weren't buying DVDs anymore, they pivoted into that space. So once, throughout this conversation, Amy, we've explored resilience, uncertainty, and the balance between action and that reflection. But at the core of it all, leadership is deeply personal. If you could leave leaders with one question they should consistently ask themselves to stay aligned, adaptable, and impactful, what would that question be and why?
Well, one of the questions that I ask myself, and so this is a question that I ask other leaders to consider, is am I leading in a way that makes other people better? Am I leading in a way that's going to leave this world a better place for the next generation than it was for me? And so, what I recognize is leadership, it's not about titles, it's not about power, it's not even about being the smartest person in the room, because if you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. But it's truly about impact. It's about that ripple effect. How are you elevating people? How are you empowering them? How are you helping them grow? And how are you helping them be successful? So the best leaders, they don't just build successful teams, they actually create these environments where people are empowered to thrive and to reach their greatest goals. So again, it's about how am I leading, or am I leading in a way that impacts others? And if so, how am I leading them towards success?
Amy, how could people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
Sure. So you mentioned earlier that I'm on LinkedIn. I am Amy Pechacek. I also have a Twitter, which is Pechacek_Amy. I have the Alpstra.com website. So that's ALPSTRA. And we also have an Amy Pechacek website, which is simply www.amypechacek.com.
Thank you, Amy, for all of your insight today.
Thank you for having me, Olivia.
It was a pure pleasure. Anytime I get to deep dive into emotional intelligence and even touch on some of those, I get really excited. So I've really enjoyed this conversation. And a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation include the strongest people go through the strongest storms. Remember that those storms you go through, whether small or big, play an impact on who you are, and the strength you can pull from going through that storm can help you elevate yourself, but also help you elevate others around you, like Amy mentioned, as well as everybody wants to be seen and heard. As Amy brought up in the questions she asked to get people talking in her workshops or in her meetings on what is those things that affected you in your childhood and adulthood, that gets the conversation started. People like to make sure they're being seen and heard and understood. And even those small questions, like Amy said, might not seem really impactful in the moment, but can really change the way people communicate, actually see each other, hear each other, and also bond and form relationships long term, as well as to get people engaged, ask them their opinions. I love this point. When you see someone being quiet, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to make sure they know the answer or get an answer from them, but at getting them to start to talk, like Amy said, just ask the question, what is your opinion on this? And leave it open, and that will allow someone to feel comfortable enough to answer without being judged and really get them comfortable with having that voice in the conversation, as well as ask someone if you could provide feedback. This was another one of my favorites. A lot of what Amy said today was really good. But will allow someone to perceive that feedback in a lot of times one or two ways. If you just bring it on harsh, as Amy said, it's probably not going to be perceived well. If you ask it, it allows them to answer and say yes, which then puts them in the headspace to hear that feedback. It also makes them comfortable with understanding where the conversation's going, the reason why you're providing that feedback, and actually have the dialogue, as well as feedback is a gift. And lastly, am I leading in a way that will make others around me better? And this is a question and challenge I'm going to give everyone who's listening today is ask yourself, are you leading in a way that are making others better? This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Amy Pechacek. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.